Welcome back. In agribusiness, Russia is giving the okay for farmers to plant genetically modified crops. Previously, GM seeds could only be grown in experimental plots. The government says the decision will take effect July 1st of next year. Registration of the seeds, however, is expected to take a couple years, so the country hopes to harvest its first genetically modified soybeans in 2016. With South American production in full swing, all eyes are on the weather south of the border. Today, we get a glimpse into the current situation. We're here now with Joe Vaklovic. Joe, let's talk about South America. I mean, everybody's watching the weather right now. What's going on? Are pretty positive on the weather? I know it's been dry, but are rains headed that way?
Yeah, weather patterns have, as a whole, been very favorable for South American grain production. The soybean crop's off to a really good start in Brazil. In Argentina, they have had some issues with dryness here and there, but you know, there's no such thing as a perfect growing season. But I think they're pretty close right now. So, you know, this South American thing is becoming bigger and bigger as we go on over the years. I think Brazil and Argentina combined are going to produce about 40% more beans than we did here in the U.S. this year. So they're becoming a much, much bigger player and really the biggest game globally when it comes to soybean production.
Well, Joe, last year, you know, they had a big crop, but then they had issues actually getting the crop out.
I'm sure it's going to be something that's going to take years, if not decades, to improve to the point where it's totally reliable and streamlined. I know that China, who is the biggest buyer of soybeans out of Brazil, is assisting in some of those efforts. So that'll be another story at some point this spring. I think the Brazil infrastructure story will come around in the headlines at some point in time.
But nonetheless, they're setting on a big crop right now. So what does this mean for the American farmer?
Well, ultimately, I think it's going to mean you're going to see a little bit of a shift away from demand for U.S. beans. And this is a story that we deal with every year now, is that, China is going to cancel some of their U.S. bean purchases and they're going to go buy cheaper Brazil and Argentina beans. At this point in time, there's no reason to think that that's not going to happen. What my fear is that, okay, we're going to have this big Brazil crop, but what happens when we plant another 5 or 6 million acres here in the U.S. next year? I think that during that 14-15 marketing year, you could see a situation like we saw in corn last year, where your carryout in the U.S. could potentially increase drastically, you know, from 150 million bushels up to, you know, 250 or 300 or even into the 400s, depending on how big that acreage increases next year and how much demand slips as a result of this big South American crop.
Thanks so much, Joe. I appreciate it. Please stay with us. We have more Ag Day coming up in just a moment.
For more information about Standard Grain and its services, call Joe at 312-462-4438.
Want a stronger, healthier, and better yielding corn crop, but what you need can seem overwhelming. Well, it doesn't have to be. Bring the Corn College TV experts to your farm with Farm Journal's Corn College Education Series. Ken Ferry and Missy Bowers share their practical, hands-on advice organized into 4 easy-to-follow topics vital for your crop success. Choose the one DVD you need or order the complete set. It's time to take the next step to a stronger, healthier, and better yielding corn crop. Order Farm Journal's Corn College Education Series today.